Look again. The first airplane designated as Air Force One now sitting in the Arizona desert. It was sold in a package deal back in 1970, but the new owner had no idea it was holding a big piece of presidential history. Now it is in desperate need of a new home. Lisa Cunha has that story. She's live in Denver. How'd this old Air Force One plane end up in Arizona?
Well, it actually just kind of slipped through the cracks. It's a Lockheed Constellation, and it carried President Dwight Eisenhower during about 1 year of his administration from 1953 to 1954. And as you mentioned, it was sold as a package deal by the Air Force in 1970 to a man named Mel Chrysler, who needed planes for crop dusting. There were no official markings like what you see today on presidential aircrafts, so no one knew what he had. It is the only Air Force One not in a museum, and it holds a very important place in aviation history. One evening in 1953, when there was no call sign Air Force One, the Columbine 2, as it was known, was carrying the 34th president as Air Force Flight 8610 over New York, when there was a near miss.
For air traffic control purposes, this would be Air Force Flight 8610. In 1953, this aircraft and Eastern Airlines Flight 8610 ended up in the same airspace over New York City. Because of that incident, the Air Force designated a call sign for this presidential aircraft.
After being a presidential aircraft, it just became a VIP plane, and then on to Mel Chrysler. Bill?
What happens to the plane now, Alicia?
Well, the owner is now trying to find a home for it. Mel Chrysler has since passed, and his grandson, Tim Crowley, is trying to find a museum to take the plane. And there are plenty of museums that want it, but it's going to take about $1.5 million to restore it. So now it sits in a field in the Marana Airport just outside of Tucson. Mel ended up using the plane for spare parts because the landing gear actually was bad. And it wasn't until he received a call from the Smithsonian in 1980 that Mel knew he had a piece of history.
Our atomic presence in the United States was formed during his administration, and the Atoms for Peace speech, which he was most famous for, was written on board this airplane.
Now, Bill, the plane has been in Marana now for about a decade, and it will stay there unless someone helps pay for its restoration.
We'll figure out what happens then. Cool. Lisa Cunha, thank you. Interesting story there out of Denver today.